Several months ago, I did a quarterly update where I show off some of the pieces that I've bought in the previous 3 or 4 months. In this case, I had a group of coins that I knew I was probably going to be sending off to a third-party grader. I've got those coins back, so we're going to talk about the grades that those pieces have received, and I'm also going to talk about some of the really specific elements that attracted me to these coins in what is going to be a little bit more of an advanced topic where we talk about some of the more complex details of sending a coin off to a third-party grader, the criteria that I use, the things that attracted me to these pieces, and whether or not I actually received the grades on these pieces that I was kind of gambling that I would receive. This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a little bit more complicated than some of my more recent videos, but I know you guys are up for it, and you need to always be pushing yourself to learn a little bit more about this fascinating hobby of stacking precious metals and collecting coins. If you're new to the channel, my name is Dub C, and I want to thank you for spending some time with me here today. This is going to be a lot of fun, trust me. If you are one of my returning subscribers, thank you guys as always. You're going to have to let me know what you think about this. Do you follow the same kind of criteria? Are you looking for the same things when you're making purchases? Have you sent things off to a third-party grader yet? This is going to be really interesting, I think. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, especially if you've caught a couple of my videos, I'd like to encourage you to go ahead and click on that subscription button. Remember, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe to a channel. It's really just a way to show support. I like to begin my videos with a simple disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. I'm not trying to offer you any kind of financial advice. I'm simply trying to share some of my experience having bought and sold precious metals and rare coins for the last 30 or 40 years. And I also like to begin my videos with a couple of concepts that we can weave into it. So in this case, I've got 3 or 4 concepts. Some of them are really easy. Some of them are a little bit more nuanced, but I will make reference to these concepts as we go further into these beautiful coins that you're going to see here in just a moment. It's important to kind of always be exposing yourself to these ideas so that you can eventually pick them up and run with them. That's my ultimate goal of this channel. I want you to become the best collector, stacker, numismatist that you possibly can be. So we're going to talk about these concepts that I'm going to show you each one of these 3 coins. I've got another one here that's just for an example. And we'll talk about the grades that I was hoping to receive, and I actually recorded that footage about 2 months ago before I sent these pieces off, so I would have kind of a visual diary of what I expected the grades to be and why I expected those grades to be what I hoped they would be. And now that we've got them back, I'll kind of do a compare and contrast with video footage that I'm shooting right here with you guys today, so we can kind of see exactly how close or far I was in receiving the grades that I hoped to receive. Let's talk about those concepts. The first one is something that I talk about often on this channel, and that's the Sheldon grading scale. Sheldon was a numismatist in the early part of the 20th century. He studied mostly copper coins, but what he did is he kind of codified the grading system that we still use to this day, and he made it a scale of 1 to 70, with 1 being kind of a theoretically bad coin, a coin that had been so badly worn and rubbed down that you could barely even make out what it was. And then on the other end of that scale, he called that a 70, and those are the coins that are in absolutely pristine condition, the exact way that they were made, and they were made in the very best circumstances. That would be kind of a theoretically good coin. So the Sheldon grading scale is something that we talk about all the time, but that's really what it boils down to. There are also groups of words that are associated, or words that are associated with groups of grades. A good example of that are the grades that fit within the about uncirculated range. That would be coins that grade from 50 to 59. We don't technically use a 59 grade, but I imagine we probably will eventually. But those coins are called about uncirculated. Not surprisingly, the next higher group of grades, that would be 60 through 70, that 11-point scale there, those pieces are all called uncirculated. That is interchangeable with the term mint state, and I am still struggling to start using the expression mint state rather than uncirculated because I have been using the term uncirculated for 40 years now. But the truth of the matter is that a coin could in fact enter circulation as long as it didn't receive any wear on its highest points. it would still be considered a mint state or uncirculated coin. I know it's a little bit difficult concept to grasp and to wrap your head around, but uncirculated doesn't truly mean uncirculated, and it certainly doesn't mean never touched by human hands. That's the kind of things that people that are unfamiliar with numismatics or numismatists might throw into the mix. So we have the concept of the Sheldon grading scale. And whenever you've got people agreeing to use kind of a system, you have people who try to game that system. So what I think of as a 55 may not be what you think is a 55, but more important, there may be people who know full well that a coin is not a 55. Maybe it's a 52 or a 53 or a 50, but they may write AU55 on their little coin label when they try to sell that piece, knowing full well that they're going to convince people that the coin is better than it really is. And that's what really brought about the advent of third-party grading. I've done lots of videos on third-party grading. I won't go too deep into it, but this is an example of what we call a slab. This is a holder made by a third-party grader called NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. You can see this grade here is a 66. I'll talk about this grade and others in just a moment. NGC and PCGS and CACG, I know it's a lot of abbreviations, those are all organizations that I use and that I trust. There are lots of other third-party graders, and the concept of a third-party grader is pretty simple. For a small fee, you send your coin to this organization that is completely impartial. They will look at the coin, they will give it their best estimate as to what the grade is in their opinion, and then they will seal the coin in these rigid plastic holders that we call slabs. And that way you can buy and sell a coin that has been impartially graded by somebody who is an expert in this field. And that way there's no worry whether or not somebody is inflating the grade to try to make more money off of it when you've got it stated here very clearly by somebody that you know and trust, in this case NGC. So that's the idea of a third-party grader. I want to talk about two other topics that are a little bit more advanced. The first one is the concept of a details grade. I will be doing a video about details grading, but really briefly. If the surface of a coin has been so badly damaged that the graders can no longer assign one of those Sheldon grading scale numbers to it, they will sometimes still put the coin in a holder and offer it as a details graded coin. What does that mean? The surface is not something that would allow them to assign a numeric grade, but the details of that coin may still exist in a state of preservation that allows them to offer the verbal equivalent of that grade. I know it sounds a little bit nuanced, but it really does start to make sense when you see examples. So what if a coin was in the Sheldon grading scale somewhere about a 55? Let's just use that as an example. The verbal equivalent of that would be the range of about uncirculated. Again, that's from 50 to 59 theoretically. We don't use the grade 59. All of those coins within that area, within that range, would be considered about uncirculated. But what if you had improperly cleaned that coin? The graders would not be able to assign a numeric grade, but the details still exist. That would be commensurate with a coin that was in the about uncirculated range. So they would simply call that an AU details coin. And that's the entire concept of a details grade. What does it mean practically? There are probably 100 different reasons that a coin could receive a details grade, and they cover all sorts of different things, from improper cleaning to really bad scratches or really bad rim dings. If a coin had been used in jewelry and been soldered into some kind of a bezel and then broken out of it, but there's still kind of solder on the rim. If it's got a really deep gouge, if it's been completely planed off on one side, if it's got a hole all the way through it, but the details that remain still indicate that coin would be in that very fine or about uncirculated or even uncirculated range, that's when the third-party graders would assign it that details grade. And I've got an example here to show you what I'm talking about. This is an 1865 San Francisco $20 gold piece. I bought this probably 5 or 8 years ago, and I knew at the time that the color, the tone of the gold was kind of flat and lifeless. There is almost no luster to it. You don't see any cartwheel around it. This is an indication that this coin had been improperly cleaned. We don't clean coins, right? This is the result of cleaning coins. But I knew that it was a middle early version of a $20 gold piece. It was the oldest $20 gold piece that I had, still is. And it's also a Civil War era gold piece, and I thought that made it interesting enough. I was sending a bunch of other coins off to NGC, so I went ahead and threw this in, and they gave it an AU details grade. There is no numeric grade associated with it. I would guess this to be probably a 53 or a 55 had it not been improperly cleaned. So now you know kind of the concept of a details graded coin. What does it mean practically in terms of pricing? Details graded coins are not quite the kiss of death, but they are not too far away from it. There are exceptions. If you've got a very, very rare coin that is, priced in the tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and you've always wanted one of those, and you have the opportunity to buy a details graded coin of that type, maybe there's a hole in it, maybe it'd been worn on a necklace or something, that can save you a bunch of money. In some cases, it can be as much as an 80 or 90% discount. But the flip side of that is that you don't want your coins to be details graded unless you know, like I did with this $20 gold piece, that it had been improperly cleaned and it probably wasn't going to make it into what we call a straight graded slab, that is a numeric graded slab. It can save you money, but it can cost you money if you picked up one of these pieces raw, that is, not having been slabbed or graded, and you send it off to a third-party grader thinking that you're going to get a coin back with a numeric grade, and it comes back with a details grade. These detailed graded pieces typically sell at a very deep discount. In the case of this $20 gold piece, it still contains all the gold that any other $20 gold piece contains, and I paid the gold value for it essentially. But what if you had bought something that was especially rare, thinking that it would come back an MS63 and it comes back tooled or chiseled or puttied? Again, there are probably 100 different ways that a coin can come back with a details grade. It's a heartbreaker and it's a wallet buster. So it is a very important skill to be able to detect those pieces that do not qualify for a details grade, or at least shouldn't qualify for a details grade. You want to avoid those detail graded coins if you possibly can, with those few exceptions, if you're picking up something that is especially rare or meaningful to you. So that's the concept of a details grade. And then the last concept that I wanted to talk about, and again, this is a much more advanced and nuanced subject, right? This is the concept of eye appeal. Oh boy, we could do entire videos about this, and depending on the interest in this video, I may actually kind of parse this out and do a video about eye appeal. But really briefly, eye appeal is the subjective standard for the beauty of a coin. That's really what it comes down to. If you see a piece and you go, whoa, that is a beautiful coin, not just the design of the coin, right? The state of preservation, the luster, the tone, there's something special about that piece that really does make you stop and go, wow, that's eye appeal. And it is very difficult to start to discern exactly how significant eye appeal can be in certain issues. Sometimes, like a Morgan dollar, the eye appeal can make the coin skyrocket off the charts. It can add another 100% to the value of a coin. But the opposite of that is also true. If a coin has negative eye appeal, which is a thing, and I'll talk about it in just a second, it can reduce the value of the coin, the desirability, the saleability of a coin significantly. So, a subjective standard for the beauty of a coin, eye appeal can depend on vibrant natural toning. That's one of the most important subjects that can make a coin really have beautiful eye appeal. It can have intense luster. Generally speaking, coins that come straight from a brand new pair of dies will have better luster than coins that were made after the 1000th or the 10,000th printing or pressing of a coin. So you want that intense luster. I've got examples of that I'll be sharing with you in upcoming videos. What if a coin is a proof coin and it has beautiful cameo contrast? That's another example of eye appeal and how significant it can be. NGC assigns a star designation to coins with exceptional eye appeal. Old Dub C does not have a single NGC graded coin that's got a star next to it. And it literally is, you'll see it, an example like this, it would say PF66 star. There'd be like a little star logo next to it. That means it has exceptional eye appeal. PCGS actually has seven different layers of eye appeal. This is true, and it's kind of funny. The highest level is called amazing. That's really what they call it. The next highest level is positive, and then you have above average, and then you've got neutral, where there is kind of literally kind of medium eye appeal. It's not good, it's not bad. Then you've got below average. What is the lowest level of eye appeal called? It is the negative level called ugly. I promise you, this is actually the word that NGC or PCGS uses, and it can actually deduct up to 2 points from a coin's numeric grade. That's how significant eye appeal can be to a coin. It is really hard to say. You would think that it would be completely subjective, right? What I feel is eye appeal may not be what you feel is eye appeal, and that is true to a degree. But generally speaking, numismatists agree that there are certain things that really give a coin that special pop that is only seen on maybe 5 or maybe 10% of coins. That's eye appeal. It's hard to learn. It's hard to discern. It's hard to convince other people of, but I've got some examples here. You'll see exactly what I feel about eye appeal as we get further into this. It's kind of cool. PCGS actually requires coins to have above average to positive, right? That's the second and third highest levels of eye appeal. In order for coins to qualify for their highest levels of mint state or proof designation, so 68, 69, 70, you must have these higher level of eye appeals to even qualify for those numeric grades. That's how significant eye appeal can be. This is a tricky thing, but it's a lot of fun too, especially when you start using some more subjective ideas about coin grading. It really gets you into the philosophy of what makes a coin beautiful. It's a stunning area to study. It's a lot of fun. So let's talk about these pieces. We're going to break this up into a couple of videos. We're going to talk about the first one here. Again, we're going to interweave this with video footage that I shot 2 months ago. So we'll be talking about old Dub C and new Dub C as we talk about the results of these pieces that I just got back. Let's start over here on the very, very far left. This is an 1854 1/4 gold fractional California piece. So take it away, Dub C of 2 months ago, and then he'll throw it back to me and I'll talk to you exactly about what NGC said of this piece. This is an 1854 California 1/4 gold piece. This is literally one of the smallest gold pieces ever made in the United States of America. There is a lot of confusion about California gold. These were pieces we think that were minted in the gold fields in 1849, 1850, shortly thereafter, because nobody thought to bring spare change with them when they were going into the gold fields. They didn't think they were going to need quarters and half dollars. So there was a really, really bad shortage of small change, and some of the jewelers and refiners who were made it out to California and were dealing with the people that were mining gold took it upon themselves to make really tiny little pieces of gold. This was so that miners could avoid, spending nuggets of gold or spending pinches of gold dust. And we think that they actually circulated, they fulfilled their purpose for a very brief period of time, but then the San Francisco Mint was established shortly thereafter, and the Mint didn't like competition, so they started going after people who were making these pieces, who by then, and I'm talking probably late 1850s up until really about the turn of the century, these pieces were seen as kind of a souvenir, right? This was a collector's item. If you were coming to see the gold fields in California a few years after the fact, if you're coming out to the Gold Coast, coming out to California from maybe the East Coast, maybe you were in New York or someplace along the East Coast and you were going out by rail, this was the kind of thing that you would take back because it kind of spoke of the gold fields, right? This is romanticized California for those folks who were visiting. So they remained popular and were continued to be produced for many, many years after they were ever spent, if they were ever actually spent. There's still a lot of people who don't believe that they were actually ever spent. But they continued to be made until after the turn of the century. And then we saw a big influx of these in around the bicentennial in the United States, a whole bunch of copies, not just replicas, but genuine copies. Pieces that were made out of brass and gold-plated flooded the market, and it really kind of upset the cart when it comes to these collectible, very interesting, authentic pieces. And it's very hard for most people to tell the difference between them. Now, this one is actually dated 1854, which is significantly after the gold rush. if we think of that as 1850, 1849, 1850, 1851. But a lot of these pieces were actually backdated. They were made later and backdated so that they could avoid persecution by those mint officials who were going knocking on doors looking for the people who were making these. So this was an interesting piece I was able to pick up a few months back, and I believe this to be an authentic piece as far as we can tell. Some grading systems, some services actually quantify these and make it tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Some of them even go more advanced than that as to when they were made, if they actually would have circulated. What attracted me to this piece is that absolutely gorgeous golden tone. You see just a little bit of kind of a golden brown tone to this piece that is highly unusual, and I think it's authentic. So I am hoping that this piece, which was privately minted but is still part of American numismatic history, I'm hoping that this piece comes back AU 58. If it comes back less than a 58, I'll be disappointed. If it comes back higher than a 58, and there is a tiny chance it will come back higher than a 58, somewhere in that mint state or uncirculated range, I will be thrilled. But it's important to have these pieces authenticated because there are so many replicas out there when and if it ever comes time to sell a piece like this. All right, so Dubsy of a couple months ago said that he was expecting this to get an AU 58 grade, and there was the possibility that it would cross that line. It's a fascinating series of coins. These require a lot of understanding about replicas, about kind of tribute pieces, pieces that came about way after the gold rush, and the possibility that some of these pieces actually did circulate back in the period of the gold rush. So I said, AU 58, I would be a little bit disappointed if it came back with a grade that was lower than that. And this is such an esoteric issue. And these pieces were so badly treated back in the day. These were souvenirs, right? This was the kind of thing that was mounted into anklets and bracelets and put into earrings. And they were cleaned and they were improperly handled. These things are so tiny. And you think about something that's 170, 175 years old. The chance that these even survived in the first place is miraculous. But we want to see this piece with at least an AU 58 grade. What did NGC say? Ta-da. They gave it a 61, which is the higher end of what I was hoping this piece would be. This piece does have exceptional eye appeal, though, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So it gave NGC gave it an MS61 that is a straight graded, right? This did not receive a details grade, which is a good thing. But they also gave it a BG105 catalog number. What does that mean? There was a famous numismatist in the middle part of the 20th century named Breen, and he worked with another numismatist named Gillio, and they came up, Walter Breen and Ronald Gillio came up with a book that cataloged these California fractional pieces. Numismatists are huge on catalogs. They want to see a number assigned to every single coin that they have. And honestly, it makes it really easy to compare these pieces in apples to apples comparison. When you start looking at very, very fine details and you want to have a very specific coin, maybe it's a variety, maybe it's an error, maybe it's a very specific type of coin, you want to be able to compare these catalog numbers to make sure you're talking about the same thing. In this case, this is a Breen Gillio number 105. They wrote the book on this that actually is called California Pioneer Fractional Gold back in 1983, I think is the first edition. You're looking at a copy of it here. This thing has gone through a couple of revisions, but it always goes out of print really quickly. If you stumble upon one of these books, snap it up because they cost $200 or $300 now. But this is 105. What does that mean? Well, NGC has graded a whole 97 different pieces of BG105, like this piece. Now, that doesn't sound like very much, but in the world of California fractional gold, and there are dozens, if not hundreds, of different varieties of these from all sorts of manufacturers. That's why it's such a fascinating area to study. They've graded 97 of them. So that's probably more than most, right? I had a feeling this would be a little bit more of a common variety when I picked it up, but I didn't have my Breen Gillio catalog with me at the time. I was having to go with my gut when I made this purchase, but there were other reasons why I like this piece. I'll talk about that in just a second. NGC has graded 97 of them. In fact, they have only graded 2 lower than my example of a 61. I want to say they've graded 6 61s, but everything else has graded higher than a 61. 161. So that's a little bit of a letdown. You want to have a coin that is graded somewhere at least on the higher side of the population of pieces that have been graded. But we know that this piece is a mint state coin. We know that it is not a details graded coin. That's very important. We know exactly what year it was made in. We know the BG number for this piece. Definitely worth having put into a slab by NGC. It makes this coin infinitely easier to sell should that time ever come. But why did I like it? The grade is not the whole story here, right? It has eye appeal. And the significant thing about this piece, and I talked about a little bit in the video that came prior to this, is that you see this beautiful golden, kind of honey-colored brownish gold. Gold is largely inert. We don't see tone gold very often. It's one of the things that attracted me to this coin in the first place, back when I first bought it. We see these California pieces sometimes with a little bit of tone like this, and it probably comes from what we call tobacco toning. Tobacco and coins used to be held in small leather pouches. You're looking at an example of what I'm talking about here. Why would people have put them in these pouches? Gold was really valuable, and it was something that you did not want to lose. And you think about, an early pioneer home dating back to the 1850s, all the way up to the turn of the century. Most people didn't have a truly safe place to keep very small, valuable things. So it made sense that people just logically put them in little coin purses or tobacco pouches, as they were called. And the tanning of the leather in those, and also probably mixed with the compounds found in tobacco if they were used as a tobacco pouch, would sometimes over long periods of time impart this beautiful, deep, dark, rich toning on certain gold pieces. Remember, I said that gold is largely inert, so it doesn't tone very often. If you find a beautiful piece of tone gold, it can add significantly to that piece's eye appeal. So that's what attracted me to this piece. There's also some luster here, and it's hard to make out. Again, I know this is a very, very tiny issue, but right here where the shadow of my pointer is, you have a little bit of highly reflective fields. I thought there was at least the possibility that NGC would say that this piece had proof-like or cameo surfaces. In this case, they didn't. And I was also hoping that maybe this piece would receive a star designation. The truth of the matter is that a lot of these California pieces do have kind of pretty toning, but we don't see this beautiful, deep, rich tobacco toning very often, and I think it's exceptional. That's what I really liked about it. This is interesting. How significant is eye appeal? I want you to take a look at another example. This is available right now on eBay. This is an 1854 BG 105 NGC graded California fractional piece that's graded MS62. So that's about as apples to apples comparison as you can possibly get, right? They're actually offering this piece for $469.95. That's significantly more than I paid for this piece, even including slabbing. So what do you think about their piece, which is the exact same coin? You can't have more of an apples to apples comparison with the exact same third-party grader holder, with 1 degree off in terms of its grade. This piece, to my eye, and you'll have to let me know what you think about it, is dull. It is flat. The tone on this gold is your typical kind of straw-colored. It's fine. You can tell that it's a gold coin, but there's no depth to this piece at all. It doesn't offer anything to my eye. I am not attracted to its eye appeal. On my piece, you can see just how richly toned this is, and now that this piece is straight graded from NGC, whether it's true or not, the market will accept the fact that that toning is natural, and that adds significantly to the value of a coin. You don't want an artificially toned coin. We'll talk about that in the future also. So, which would you rather have? I like to use the expression Dub C's choice. When you're looking at two coins that are exactly the same grader, same grade, same coin, same attributions or variants or varieties, you will almost always find one that you like better than the other. That's your natural ability to pick out that eye appeal. In my case, for my money, I would so much rather have the NGC MS61 graded that has this beautiful natural tobacco toning, than the other piece that just has that kind of dull, flat, non-lustrous, almost uninteresting or boring look to it. I would rather have the lower graded piece than the higher graded piece, and I'm thrilled with the fact that I've got this piece. Let me know your thoughts down below. We're going to wrap this video up here, but we still have several other pieces to go, and we'll talk about how those pieces interweave with this concept of eye appeal and grades, third-party grading. We're going to talk about some of the reasons that I selected these pieces. We're going to talk about the grades. Did I get them right like I did with this piece, or was I way off? If you have questions about this one coin or any of the techniques or tips that I talked about in this video, by all means leave them down below. But remember that we will have a part 2 of this that may answer some of your questions. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, I really hope that you subscribe to this channel now that you've seen kind of the concept of this channel and what it is that I have to offer. It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to a channel. It's just a way to show support to the people who make the videos that you watch. And I premiere videos almost every Friday evening. I'm often there to watch the video with you for the very first time, to make comments while we're seeing the video play for the first time. And I often go live immediately after the video premiere. We call that a live stream. And this is an opportunity for you to jump in a little bit of a higher paced, faster, quicker environment where we'll talk about some of the coins or bullion or precious metals that we just talked about in the video that premiered just before it. But the floor is wide open. We'll talk about those pieces. We can have questions and answers. You can make comments. It's a great way to meet other people in this community, and it's a fantastic way to launch your weekend. I really look forward to those live streams. Definitely come back for part 2 of this 2-part video series. And I like to end my videos by saying, always be learning. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of your journey as we go deeper into the world of coins and physical precious metals.